Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Today we got some awesome information for you guys. We'll start out with something a little bit, I guess, on the brighter side. Kenny Golladay's injury update, his timetable for return. Joe Judge said he doesn't want to set a timetable, doesn't want to put that into the media, but the expectation is that he will be out for 2 to 3 weeks. He will miss the first preseason game because of that. Potentially the second one. I wouldn't be surprised to see him miss 2 preseason games, which would, in my opinion, is best for him. Just keep him out. Don't let him restrain that injury. It's just not worth it. Anthony, how are you doing today, my friend? And what are you thinking about this Kenny Golladay situation?
Yeah, I'm doing really good, and I'm thinking that the Giants, like Joe Judge said, avoided the worst-case scenario. I think that we caught a real major break here. This sounds to be a really similar injury to the one that he suffered last year, because if you remember, he had a hamstring pull or a hamstring strain that kept him out of weeks 1 and 2 of the regular season, but he suffered that hamstring pull I think the final week of practice, like 3 days before the first game or something. So that was also a 2 to 3 week injury because he returned in week 3, but he wasn't at 100%, they said. He didn't get to 100% until weeks 4 or 5. And then, of course, he had the hip injury, which kept him out for the rest of the year. So definitely something to monitor with Kenny Golladay, that hamstring has been giving him problems for years. He missed, I believe, 5 games with a hamstring injury his rookie season as well. So I think the Giants are doing this properly, being very cautious, extra cautious with Kenny Galladay's hamstring. I think they have to be because there is a history with that hamstring injury. So let's be really careful. Let's let him rest. If he doesn't take a single snap in preseason, I'm okay with it. Let's get him healthy for the regular season so that we can have a really good year of football and hopefully make the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. Take it easy. Don't rush it. It's just simply not worth it. But the Giants did come back today with a lighter practice because they went so hard on Wednesday. I think, just having the full pads on, getting acclimated to getting hit by grown-ass men is definitely takes some time to get used to. So I think the Giants now are easing back into things. They're going to get a little bit more intense and ramping up in the coming days. I think they have a couple days off next week. So hopefully, for the most part, injuries aside, everything is going well. There hasn't been any significant injuries aside from Levine Toilolo tearing his Achilles. Now, that is a big storyline because I guess it's a big storyline for the back end of the tight end roster it is. But it does open up an opportunity for Caden Smith. And, I really do hope that Levine Toilolo ends up, recovering to 100% and having a successful rest of his career. That probably ends his tenure with the Giants, unfortunately. He was a fringe roster guy in the first place, so this, might, tail the end of his career with Big Blue. But, injury, ultimately, the positives of it for others, at least, if you watch the Yankees, you would know this. A lot of guys that, minor league guys or Caden Smiths of the world now have an opportunity to find their way onto the roster, onto the football field. Now, I know there's a couple options on the back end there. Ryson John's one of them, Canadian guy from last year coming in, but didn't really have any experience at tight end, so he had to kind of get acclimated and learn the position. Do you think this is Caden Smith's time to shine? They were probably going to take 3 tight ends into the regular season. Obviously, you have Kyle Rudolph, obviously Evan Ingram. Do you think Caden Smith is now that guy, Anthony?
Yeah, I think that they were probably going to take even 4 tight ends on the roster into the regular season just because they do run so much 13 personnel. They ran, I believe, more 13 personnel last season than any other team, which is 3 tight ends on the field at the same time. So I think it's likely that they would bring 3 and 1 backup just in case of anything. So now it seems like they're probably not going to run as much 13 personnel because now they're missing out on their top blocking tight end. Levine Toilolo was their run blocker for the tight end position. He'll be out for the season. So Caden Smith, a good run blocker, not what they had in Levine Toilolo. So I'm not exactly sure who's going to fill that role that Toilolo is now leaving behind due to injury. But they could end up potentially converting some sort of fullback to tight end to fill that role because that's a pretty easy transition. If you're blocking fullback, you can make the transition to blocking tight end if you're tall enough and strong enough.
Or Gillespie.
I think that you could see some guys like that, like an Eli Penny line up at tight end, but not primarily.
Why not just
primarily
jumbo
a fullback. Well, that's another thing that you got to keep in mind. Nate Solder could be playing that jumbo tight end quite frequently this year since they do have him.
Brett Hedgie out there.
Yeah, I mean, he's a little small to be on the edge, which is kind of the problem there. He's an interior guy.
He's a big guy. He's a big guy. I mean, he can't be
he's
any
big for a tight end,
worse of
so yeah.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying he's a blocking tight end, though. You know what I mean? You're just sending him out there to do a
Totally.
specific job. He's just, Living Toilolo can't catch a pass either, so, might as well throw out Brett.
Absolutely, but that's why I do think that Nate Solder is a little more comparable, though he's probably not as fast as Levi Toilolo, and Nate Solder is pretty damn slow, but he is 6'8", just like Toilolo, and he is pretty skinny build, Nate Solder is, so he might be your best bet as that jumbo tight end / offensive tackle, that swing tackle, and I do think that's the role that we've been projecting him to play all offseason, is swing tackle, which is kind of when you're just playing jumbo tight end, so I think Nate Solder will see a lot more reps than most people realize in that 13 personnel, especially now with this injury. But yeah, I think that Caden Smith is obviously here now with a golden opportunity to rise to the occasion and hopefully fill this role. Maybe he improves as a blocker. I think he's always been a decent blocker, pretty good receiver as well underneath. Just need to see him add some more to his skill set, and maybe he can see the field a whole lot more because of this.
I've always felt like Caden Smith is on the short end of the stick. He always kind of been swept under the rug. I remember that game against Washington where he had 2 touchdowns. One of them was a game winner. And then he just kind of disappeared. They didn't give him the reps. Like, every time he's on the field, though, he's a good enough, run blocker that it's like, okay, he's fine. And then the guy doesn't drop the football. Like, he has some nice catches, and he runs hard. Like, he picks up a couple of nice first downs just using his force and strength. And I never really understood why they didn't get him more involved in the passing game. Even if they did do 12 personnel, had him on the field with Evan Ingram, I just don't really get why they didn't do it. Last year, they kind of ran with a lot more 11 personnel because they didn't really trust, I guess, that. I don't really know. I mean, they had Toilolo, I guess, at that point. So they did run 12 personnel with Toilolo and Evan Ingram, but I would hope to see them do it more, with Kyle Rudolph now. I think, he's a good enough blocker, too.
I think
Caden
we're going to
Smith
see a
ton
ton of 12 personnel, though. Like, you're hitting on the 12 personnel. I think we're going to see a ton of that this year. And as long as Evan Engram and Kyle Rudolph are both fully healthy, both of those are players who have some injury history. So if those guys are both fully healthy this year, I think we're going to see a ton of 12 personnel.
Yeah, and I'm actually more of a component of 11 personnel. I don't really care much for the 12 personnel. It's a good on the early downs at times, but the 11 personnel, in my opinion, red zone,
the red zone.
That's for sure. Well, especially because you have 2 big bodies in Evan Ingram and Kyle Rudolph who are good red zone threats. Definitely a good point. But I like if you're in all their portions of the field, essentially 11 personnel, because you can get a lot more intricate with the way you're disguising things with pre-snap motion, getting an extra receiver on the field. Like, give me Kadarius Toney on the field over Kyle Rudolph. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather have Kadarius and Kyle, or vice versa. It could be Sterling Shepard. It could be Darius Slayton. I want to essentially push those safeties as far back as possible. If you have those 12, if you're running 12 personnel, you can run a lot more cover 3. You can run a lot more cover 1. You don't have to play 2 deep safeties all the time because you can hold down the receivers. There's not going to be as many of them. Maybe, there'll be 2 receivers instead of 3 in the 11 personnel. And that's kind of what, gets me. I like the 11 because you can get a lot more, I guess, detailed to the way you devise your scheme. And I think I prefer it for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, me, I'm kind of in the modern, zone of the NFL. I've got, like, the progressive brain when it comes to NFL offenses. I love spreading it out. I love air raid offenses. I love, just going personnel? Deep. 10 personnel, even, no running back on the field, all receivers.
Just put Evan Ingram in a slot as a receiver. Screw it. Use 10 personnel and use him as a receiver.
No, they should do that more. I've been a huge proponent of that. I want to see Evan Engram out wide some more. I want to see him playing jumbo slot some more. I want to see the Giants get more creative in their passing attack, and I want to see them air the ball out more. I love watching the modern offenses like the Kansas City Chiefs, of course, like the Kyle Shanahan wide zone offense, the Los Angeles Rams, even the Arizona Cardinals. While they get a little funky at times, and I'm not fully on board with Cliff Kingsbury, I still like what they're trying to do with that offensive scheme. They just haven't really executed it properly. But I like to see the Giants, and I think that we will, with your guy, Russ Callaway, I think we'll see them incorporate a little bit more air raid and spread offenses, and I think we will see a lot more 11 and 10 personnel.
Yeah, the only problem with 10 personnel is that you really are leaving your tackles on an island without any support. And then when that happens, you're essentially like, they're doomed otherwise. If they're not good, you're going to get overwhelmed. Daniel Jones needs to get the ball out quick.
Absolutely, but there is one way that I can say the Giants can counteract that pretty easily with the one running back that you have on the field. I think you sub in Eli Penny and you have him pass protect in place of where Saquon Barkley would be receiving out of the backfield if you really needed the extra protection in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I get the concept, but at the same time, I also feel as though you don't really want to put Eli Penny right in front of Daniel Jones, because then let's say the pass rusher beats off the edge, and that pass rusher is obviously going to be bigger than Eli Penny, and then the guy's maybe 1-2 feet away from DJ, and I just don't think Daniel Jones has that comfort in the pocket to rely on his blockers, especially at running back. I think he's going to get flustered. You really need that tight end to chip. Most good teams have that good tight end like Travis Kelce or George Kittle, who also are elite receivers. I think the Giants are going to run a lot of 11 personnel this year. I would like them to, because, at the end of the day, I just listened to the podcast with Mark Schofield on the Big Blue Band with Nick Filato and Dan Schneier. It was a really good episode, actually. So shout out to them. But they really Mark Schofield talked about how the Giants, they did a study, and the Giants ran, I guess on their offense, the most scheduled plays, right? Meaning like all of the plays that they ran were very timed, very scripted. They were not off script. They were not like naturally flowing plays where you'll see Patrick Mahomes run around in the pocket, or at least take an extra second, buy time for himself, and then sling the ball 60 yards downfield to Tyreek Hill, which is like a majority of their touchdowns. The Giants actually were last in the NFL in just non-script plays, off-script, big shot plays downfield. They were last. That directly correlates to Daniel Jones throwing the ball 20-plus yards downfield on less than 10% of his attempts. These are all things that correlate back into it. And they need to get more involved in that category. If you're running 12 personnel, usually that's going to be a scripted play. It's not going to be an off-script play. You're going to be running the football. It's going to be short. It's going to be timing routes to the tight ends. Or slants to your boundary receivers like Kenny Golladay. They're not going to be off script. 11 personnel is a lot more open and diverse in terms of baiting defenders and creating confusion in the secondary, and that's where I think they're going to live, and why I think Russ Callaway will go that direction.
Yeah, and I think that we're going to see a lot of 11 personnel, in particular due to the fact that we have great wide receiver talent, and we have two really good slot receivers. Certainly Shepard is a phenomenal slot receiver, and Kadarius Toney we expect to be a phenomenal slot receiver. So the only way to get a slot receiver on the field, you got to play 11 or 10 personnel. So I think we're going to see that a fair bit. But another thing that, pulling from other elite offensive schemes that we're seeing around the NFL, one thing the Giants can do when they don't have an extra tight end on the field to chip block, you can absolutely script pass protection. There are ways to do that. You can roll out, the bootlegs, the PA rollouts, things like that. There are ways too. You can give him this is something that actually the Chiefs do a lot, is they'll have Mahomes stand like 7 yards back off the line of scrimmage and have him take like a deep shotgun and then take like a five-step drop off of that. So he's just...
That's probably because he has a gun.
That's true.
He can throw the ball 70 yards. Daniel Jones, I don't think has that kind of gun. It's like Brett
That's
Favre
absolutely
style.
true. But if the Giants do decide that they want to get out there with some of those more advanced passing concepts, that's one of the ways that you can add some extra time in the pocket, or not really in the pocket, but maybe behind the pocket in that case. But there's plenty that the Giants could do, and I just think, wrapping up this discussion on the personnel that the Giants have offensively, there are a lot of things that they can do creatively to get these guys on the field and get them incorporated into the offensive scheme. And I do think, like you mentioned, Russ Callaway is going to have a lot to do with that in terms of building the scheme. And so will Freddie Kitchens in that senior offensive assistant role. He loves to get vertical. We saw Baker Mayfield do a lot of play-action rollouts in 2019 and 18, and they were really effective for him. I think we can see a lot of that from Daniel Jones this year.
Yeah, we kind of went on a little tangent here, but it was a really interesting one. And I will say this, when I'm watching players like Russell Wilson, players like Aaron Rodgers, and the way that they play and the mobility they have, it all seems so instinctual, right? It seems like they know what they're doing, but it's off script. Daniel Jones, the way he moves, the way he operates, looks robotic. You know what I mean? It looks like it's all predetermined. It looks like Jason Garrett is controlling him with a little controller on the sidelines like he's playing Xbox, so Daniel Jones. That's what it seems like when you're watching him. I really would love to see him get a little bit more off script, get a little bit more comfortable moving in the pocket and not feeling like he has to make the right decision every time. You know what I mean? He tries to force things because he thinks it's the right read, or he thinks it's the right choice. But at times I'd like for him to move out of the pocket, use his athleticism as an instinct and not as like something that it's baked into the game plan. You can do that with the read option, obviously, which is a scripted play. But I do think I'd like to see him feel a little bit more comfortable and instinctual and act and react to the play instead of just trying to force things, because he seems robotic in the way he operates at times. And I think a lot of it is just predisposed and predetermined by the scheme. I really want to see Jason Garrett let him go, let him execute with what he sees and trust him. I just think Jason Garrett last year, and one of the things that I've noticed is that the scheme. Everyone talks about Jason Garrett's scheme, curls and hooks and short yardage stuff, and it's really like they're trying to get 10 yards on 3 plays, right? They're not trying to get 10 yards on one play or 20 yards on one play and move the ball downfield and get into scoring position. They're playing West Coast dink and dunk style, quick routes to their receivers because that could obviously be a result of the offensive line. But Daniel Jones is a good deep ball thrower, and they need to open that up. They need to let him go. Let him access those qualities that he has instead of holding him back. They can't. The problem is, I'd rather give him the opportunity to try than instead of just protecting him from the offensive line struggles, right? Like, you got to let him go at some point. You got to let him do it because the reality is that even if the offensive line isn't great this year, if you allow Daniel Jones to throw deep, if you allow him to target downfield, what's going to happen is that defenses are going to have to play more safeties back. They're going to have to move guys into the secondary. So you're not going to have those blitzers off the edge. You're not going to have those extra linebackers gunning after DJ. They're going to have to shift their strategy because they know the Giants are just going to keep taking shots at us until eventually they get one. Because I'd rather him launch a pass 45, 50 yards downfield than have a 3-and-out and punt it anyway because they're going to get it in the same amount of yards. So it's like, it might as well be taking shots if you're just going to end up punting it to the same place. That's kind of how I feel about it, especially if you have a Kenny Golladay situation where he can go up and make catches over 2 guys, over other corners. I think that's where you're going to see Daniel Jones thrive.
That's why the scheme is bound to change, though. The additions of a guy like Kenny Golladay, he is a premier vertical deep threat. Like, he's top 3 in the NFL at going deep. So the Giants really didn't have the personnel necessary to run a more vertical offense last year. Granted, they could have been more vertical than they were, and I have plenty of criticism to share about Jason Garrett's offensive scheme last year, and I've aired them out pretty excessively on this podcast. But now that we have a guy like Kenny Golladay, and we have also someone who's kind of a killer underneath in Sterling Shepard or Kadarius Toney, this offense really should open up because you're no longer going to be able to sit in a cover 1 and just lock people down on the outside. That's just the days of locking down the Giants in cover 1 man. They're over. Like, Kenny Golladay is going to eat that alive. So this offense really should be a lot more efficient, especially going deep. But of course, really this whole discussion just highlights how important scheme is for quarterback success. The quarterback is going to go as far as the offensive coordinator allows him to. And Daniel Jones entering his 3rd season, of course he'll go as far as his offensive line allows him to as well, and the playmakers around him, but the offensive coordinator has a lot to do with all of that. So for Daniel Jones entering his 3rd season, it's going to be very important to see how Jason Garrett handles him and how those two play off of each other as they build towards his successful 3rd season for Daniel Jones in a prove-it year.
Yep, I completely agree. And, let's move back to practice because I know we just kind of went on a little tangent there. But I had a good time, talking about it. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation as well. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on YouTube in the comments section. Make sure to drop your thoughts on Daniel Jones, what the offense you think should look like. And, if you'd like to see a little bit more creativity, because I know we would. But one player who has been showing up on defense, who is getting work at number 1 nickel corner over, Ad Robinson's currently out with an injury. I think it was a core muscle. And then you have Darnay Holmes, who, has been, working alongside Sterling Shepard, definitely getting his ankles toasted a little bit. But Darnay is learning from Shepard. Shepard even said yesterday that after every rep he takes with Darnay, he basically just tells him what he did wrong. He tries to inform him. And that's how it should be. Sterling Shepard is one of the best slot receivers in the league. The problem is he just hasn't been playing the slot that much the past couple of years. And I think now moving back in, getting the attention of nickel corners instead of CB1s is going to be great and tremendous for him. And he looks really reinvigorated. He said he hasn't been in this good shape in a long time. He came in, he leaned out. He's really quick, really fast. He looks fantastic. And I really think he's going to have a tremendous season because of it. But the Giants have been using Julian Love as the number 1 nickel corner. Our guy Julian Love, big fan of his, Anthony and I. And I'm so excited to see him in that role. I really hope that he can find his way on the field because basically everyone's saying he's quietly looking fantastic at camp. And for the most part, he's a guy that could be starting. I wouldn't be surprised to see him starting at the nickel corner spot to open the year. He looks so good he can play every single role: free safety, strong safety, outside corner, nickel corner. The guy's great. Like, I really think having him on the bench would be malpractice at this point because he just is finding his way into every single position. And I know we want Darnay, I know we want Aaron Robinson to make an impact, but at the end of the day, Julian Love, man, such an underrated player, and I would love to see him get a chance to start this year. Anthony, what are you thinking about Jay Love, and would you like to see him start over Aaron Robinson and Darnay, even though, we're really high on those guys too?
Well, you know what? Let the best man win. Let's not give any jobs to anybody. Let's see them earn it. But it seems like right now Julian Love is earning it, and that's really exciting. Of course, when we drafted Julian Love, we drafted him as a cornerback, right? It said defensive back on the Giants official listing on Twitter. I just checked that. It did say defensive back, but if you look at all the beat writers, they said the Giants announced that they drafted cornerback Julian Love with their 4th-round pick because he was a corner in college. And when we drafted him, many of us assumed that he would take over the slot cornerback position. We had, I believe, Grant Haley at the time, and he was showing some good things and showing some promises, and he's also a pretty good player in his own right, but Julian Love being the better player of the two. And then we kind of moved Julian Love into this hybrid role once Jabril Peppers went down with an injury. So Jabril Peppers was out at strong safety. Julian Love then moved over to strong safety and flashed a lot of great things there. So the Giants were like, okay, it looks like we have more of a fit with him at safety than we do at corner. But now I think they're starting to realize his natural position is cornerback. He gained a lot of great experience with the physicality playing safety these past couple of years, but really that might have benefited him as he transitions back to cornerback. Now he can play some press coverage. Now he can be more physical at the line of scrimmage and stick with wide receivers in the slot. So I'm really excited about this development regarding Julian Love taking first-team snaps at slot corner 2 practices in a row. He must be showing some really good things out there. He must be doing better than the other competition at the position. And I'm really excited. We're really high on Julian Love. I do think he's a really good player. I think he starts on most teams in the NFL, but the Giants have a lot of depth at safety, so he's considered our, defensive back that just kind of plays all over the place. But this could potentially be an avenue to get the best players on the field because Julian Love is one of the best players. Let's get him on the field as a starting slot corner. That could potentially be the move there. And if he is able to really get back into his natural position and show some improvements from where he was his rookie season, this could be really exciting. Because again, this is a guy that we all thought was going to come in and play some corner, and then he just got moved to safety, and we never really got to see him play that cornerback position that we were expecting him to play. It's like a string of events happened that just moved Julian Love out of his natural position. And now it looks like they might be moving him back to his natural position after getting some experience elsewhere, and I think that will benefit him a lot. And I think that he could really surprise a lot of people and win that starting slot cornerback job.
Yeah, I would love to see it. Honestly, like you said, let the best man win. Position battles are what training camp is all about. And the Giants have such a tremendous amount of talent in the secondary that at the end of the day, you can't really go wrong with any of those options. But let's move on to a couple of the quotes from the coaching staff. Today a lot of the coaches had an opportunity to speak to the media, including Patrick Graham, Rob Sale, Jason Garrett. But I want to start with Rob Sale, the offensive line coach, former Louisiana head coach. This is a guy who is coming from the collegiate level, never having played or coached at the NFL level before. He's a Joe Judge handpick, and I think he's going to be a pretty great guy for the Giants. I mean, at the end of the day, he's changing their fundamentals in pass protection from more of a vertical to a slide protection base, meaning that, I think it was Nick Gates that said, or Shane Lemieux, one of those two guys, it's going to provide more help and assistance for the guy next to them, because in vertical, you're really on an island. You're forced to take on guys 1v1, but slide, you're really pushing guys into one another. You're trying to create kind of havoc in the middle, and it really allows them to combo block, which is, combo blocking is basically the ideal scenario for offensive linemen. You don't want to have 1v1 scenarios. You want to have 2v1. So that's pretty good for the Giants. He said of Andrew Thomas is big, long, smart, will keep getting better, and we saw a little bit of that last year. He said in the style that he seeks for offensive linemen, he seeks gritty, plays hard and tough no matter what. I tweeted yesterday, this offensive line has gone through a lot, right? Andrew Thomas had an injury to his ankle all season last year. Matt Parrott had COVID, which impacted him tremendously. I've said tremendous like 15 times this episode. I apologize for that. Nick Gates, he took on Aaron Donald, which is just absolutely ridiculous. So anyone that's willing to stand up to Aaron Donald is tough in my book. Shane Lemieux, already back from a knee injury. He's practicing with the team, doing a pretty good job of rehabilitating and, making his way back. So I think that's a pretty good sign that he's a tough guy. And then you have Will Hernandez, who was injured and had COVID last season and started the majority of the game. So I mean, what more can you ask? This team is full of tough guys playing through injury, playing through the COVID situation last year. I'm pretty confident they're going to bounce back and at least look better than they did in 2020. But Sale also said on Matt Pert, he's small, long, athletic. Smart, long, and athletic. He will have a good future, has tackle flexibility. So he did spend some time at left tackle yesterday. Andrew Thomas was out, I guess just doing some stuff on the side. So he spent some time at left tackle. Always love to see him cross-training because I think that's a very beneficial thing for offensive tackles. Having Pat Flaherty there, he said, is tremendous. Again, another tremendous because because Pat Flaherty does have a lot of experience in the NFL, and he's a former coach for the Giants. He's kind of there as a consultant to help Rob Sale transition there. So I think that's a pretty good sign. Anthony, what are you thinking about this offensive line and what Rob Sale had to say so far?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't catch too many of the quotes from Rob Sale. They're a little scarce on Twitter right now, waiting for the Giants.com to transcribe it. But what I have seen, I do really like. And what I know about Rob Sale, I'm really encouraged by. I know that he's a 41-year-old offensive line coach who used to be an offensive coordinator for Louisiana. That right there says a lot. That shows that he could potentially take over an offensive coordinator role in the NFL, maybe even with the Giants down the road. And that also means that he's got the knowledge and the skills to contribute towards the offensive scheme with Jason Garrett in collaboration and really help those two get on the same page about what the offensive line needs to do on every single play, right? Because every single play is drawn out. You see it on Madden, for example, right? You look at a play on Madden and you see the routes drawn out by the receivers and you know exactly what's supposed to happen there. Well, in the NFL, it's not that simple. It's a little bit more complex because for each play, there's certain protection calls that the offensive line also needs to have. So there's a little bit more to those play designs. If there's a certain play where they think that the offensive line or that the receiver is going to be deep and he's going to get open and it's going to be a long developing play, well, the protection call needs to match that, and there needs to be a little bit better protection so that the play can last longer and we can get the ball deep. And that is going to be important because Rob Sale understands that, being a former offensive coordinator and now being an offensive line coach. He's going to understand how to get Jason Garrett and himself on the same page in terms of coordinating the offensive linemen to have the correct protection calls and block properly for each play within the offensive scheme. Very important there. And then, of course, like I said, he's a 41-year-old offensive line coach, and that he hasn't had any experience coaching in the NFL before. But Joe Judge gave him the vote of confidence, so that's good enough for me. And also, since he has so much collegiate experience, I think that's extremely applicable to the Giants, a team that has a second-year starting right tackle, a second-year starting left tackle, second-year starting left guard, third-year starting center, and fourth-year starting right guard. That's a very young group of offensive linemen. Rob Sale is used to coaching collegiate offensive linemen. These guys are basically collegiate offensive linemen that he's continuing to coach. I think it's the perfect match for such a young offensive line. I think they need such a young offensive line coach to help them get acclimated to the NFL game. I think that's a really, really good hiring right there by Joe Judge, and I do believe that Rob Sale, combined with Pat Flaherty, as Alex just mentioned, combined with Ben Wilkerson, and combined with Freddie Kitchens, they kind of built this offensive line coaching staff, like its own staff dedicated to the offensive line, which is huge because we know how important it is to fix this offensive line, considering how it dampened our season last year. This is going to be huge. I really believe in Rob Sale, and I really believe in what Joe Judge has constructed in terms of that little O-line coaching staff. I think it's going to be really big, especially considering how young this group is, how young Rob Sale is, and how that energy might match each other and really blossom this offensive line into a much improved unit this year.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, he did say, they're really focusing on fundamentals and making sure that every single, drill that they run, even if it's not that important, even if it's kind of just like fundamental-based hand placements and whatnot, they're perfect at it. Like, they get it down pat. And that's where it starts, man. You can have the size. And most offensive linemen have decent size. You know what I mean? Like, they're big guys. They're athletic enough. It always boils down to fundamentals for the most part. Always. And just a lack of it. Just a lack of fundamentals. And that's really the biggest thing, in my opinion. And I think that they're really focusing in with this coaching staff that you just mentioned on improving those fundamentals so that they can access, really, exploit their athleticism in cohesiveness with it. So that's really some good stuff from Rob Sale I'm really excited about. And Tyke Tolbert, wide receiver coach, said Sterling Shepard is as dialed in as ever. Worked with Jones a few times this offseason. Kadarius Toney is elusive with the ball in his hands and strong enough to break tackles. We've seen that. Very low center of gravity. Great with the ball in his hands. Golladay has a very business-like approach to the game. Fun guy to coach. Doesn't look open, but is because of size and wingspan. I guess that does make sense. He is such a big target, such a big guy. There's always guys close to him, but he has such a big wingspan. Like, he doesn't an extra 3 feet of separation on him, 3 yards of separation on him at all times, because all he does is reach his arms out, and there's the separation. So interesting concept there that I just presented. But the coverage will dictate where the ball goes. Just guys need to make sure they are doing things correctly, of course. Tony is a ways behind physically, but has been alert in meetings, so you can tell he's picking it up. That's interesting because he did miss a couple days here in the beginning due to COVID, but behind physically, maybe, I don't know if COVID had any impact on his lung capacity or whatever it might be, or he's just not conditioned as much up to this point. But that's something to keep an eye on. Maybe he won't play in the first preseason game if he's not conditionally up to par with everybody. But I definitely would not be surprised to not see him at least for a snap or two. Maybe just return a punt, see what happens. But he's also battling it out too in that. And Thomas McGaughey, the special teams coordinator, said, this isn't the Swamps. This is MetLife. They're all competing. He has to earn his way to be a kick returner. This isn't just we're giving the kick return position to anyone that we see fit. This is a competition between Jabril Peppers, Kadarius Toney. They see this as a legitimate position battle.
Dory Jackson even. I saw some clips of him returning some punts, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah. There's a ton of guys there. So I'm not going to sit here and say usually they'll just put an athletic guy, a kick returner. They're treating this as a position battle. Who wants it the most? Who wants to have the opportunity? Even John Ross too. Who wants the opportunity to be able to return kicks and see what they can do? I forget who it was. Maybe it was Tyke Tolbert who said that John Ross has woo-wee speed. I tried to do that, the best impression. But so, Thomas McGaughey did have a little interesting quote there. But I am excited to see how this wide receiver room does develop and grow, how the special teams unit unfolds, because they are treating all of these different positions, while they might not be the most exciting ones, as pretty decent position battles. And I think that kick return spot is actually sick. I'm so excited to see it during preseason. Who gets those returns, those opportunities, and who makes the most of them? John Ross really is a guy I want to see get a couple and see if that speed really shows up on game day. But Anthony, what are you thinking about those quotes and the special teams battle at kick returner?
I think low key punt returner / kick returner is the number one camp battle this year. I think not enough people are talking about that. There is a serious battle there. If you ask anybody, ask 5 Giants fans who's returning kicks for the Giants this year. A couple of them are going to say, I have no clue. A couple of them are going to throw out one name, and a couple of them are going to throw out another name. There's not going to be one defined answer. There's just a few guys that are competing for this, and we really don't know who's going to win that job just yet. So the next 4 to 5 weeks, I'm really excited to see how that battle goes and who exactly wins that. But I also want to touch on Sterling Shepard, because you mentioned him and the things that Tyke Tolbert said about him. Guys, this is a different Shep this year. This is no longer young Shep. This is veteran Shep. The dude is just different, bro. Yeah, number 3 Shep is going to be built different, bro. He has a different swagger about him. He's coaching up players, and he is just dominating in practice. I've been saying it. Shep in the complementary role is going to be huge for the Giants. Not playing that number 1 primary receiver role, that's always been a bit of a damper on him the past 2 seasons. But now that complementary role, just like he was playing alongside Odell Beckham Jr. when he had 8 touchdowns as a rookie, dude, Shep is going to be legit this year. And I'm really buying into the hype on Sterling Shepard. If you play fantasy football, he's a late round steal, I guarantee it. And I do think that he could, especially in a PPR league, and I do think that Sterling Shepard could lead the team in receptions this year. I think a big year is ahead for him. I'm really buying into the hype, seeing all the clips from him at training camp, and just listening to the way that he's speaking to the media, how confident he sounds, how confident he's walking and looking, and just how he's coaching up different players. This year, he deserves a captain's patch in my eyes. With everything that I've seen from training camp so far, he should have a captain's patch this year. He should be one of the captains on offense, and I'm really buying into the Sterling Shepard hype, guys. I'm super excited about him this year.
Yeah, I think he knows his contract. They've been out after this year. He wants to make himself look good. But at the same time, he's just a veteran now. They have a couple weapons. Maybe it's just the optimism within the team. You know what I mean? The last couple of years, there hasn't been reason for the players to be excited. We have rookie quarterbacks. We have a terrible offensive line. Our coaching staff has turned over. We have COVID. They're just they overperformed last year on defense. And now the offense, they probably told Shep, this is your chance, man. This is your chance with all the weapons, all the investments we put in the team. If you want to win, it's now. If you want to take this team to the next level, lead them. You know what I mean? Daniel Jones can lead, but Sterling Shepard's been there longer. I think he's one of the most. He's probably the oldest player on that team in terms of veteranship with the Giants. He's probably been on the Giants longer than anybody on that offense right now. And honestly, I think that's actually true.
He's actually the longest tenured New York Giant player. He's been here the longest out of any
which
player
is
on the
sad
Giants.
to me. It's actually sad, but
It is pretty sad. And I also got to mention that Sterling Shepard does have my favorite quote of the offseason so far. I mean, this was like my favorite. If you don't like it, you're welcome to leave. If you don't like Joe Judge's coaching style, you're welcome to leave. As we saw with Kelvin Benjamin, he left. If you don't like it, man, you don't have to be here. But the players who do like it, they're performing well, and we're ready for a good season. That's how I took that. I loved that quote from Sterling Shepard. And again, he's the leader. He is buying in as that captain this offseason. I really think that he should get that captain's patch. And I think that he is totally on the same page with Joe Judge and totally on the same page in terms of getting these young guys on the same page with Joe Judge and getting this team on the right track.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I really am excited to see what Sterling Shepard. And hot take, I think he actually might lead the Giants in touchdown catches this year. I know people might disagree. They probably look at Kenny Golladay, but I could see it. I could see it.
Especially considering how great of a red zone threat he is. He's phenomenal in the red zone.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. They underutilized him so much. And this is what Darnay Holmes had to say about Sterling Shepard today. Shep is very crafty, helps him get better, have grown as a player in person since last year. Asks Shep stuff like he is a big brother. Tony is twitchy and a good guy. So some good camaraderie between the players right now. And Darnay Holmes also said he enjoys having Adoree Jackson as a mentor at corner. Defense more in tune with each other than last year. Now they're in second year together. Kadarius Toney had to say on the ramp up, he feels good, trying to get better day by day, did more stuff today, learning more of the playbook, was tough mentally to be in protocol and not get on the field. He said it was good to have Judge kick some punts to him because coach is hands-on. And I think that's a really good thing about Joe Judge too. He's involved with every unit, you know. When Mark Colombo was not doing a good job last year, Coach Joe Judge went over to that offensive line and tried to help coach him up, and he ended up just firing Colombo instead. He was like, what are you doing here? Like, I can't trust you. It's really good. Tony says the entire wide receiver room, not just Shepard, have helped teach him. So Shepard, again, coming up there. It's really good, man. I think that we have a couple of really great leaders on this team, really great people who want to see success, and I think are motivated to see success based on last year's events and positivity. We only won 6 games, but that was the best Giants team I've seen in 4 years. Losing doesn't indicate you're a bad team. Maybe just a couple things go wrong per game. But the Giants defense, that's a winning defense right there. Now it's time for that offense to get to at least an average level, and I promise you we will be a 10-win team. An average defense and a top 5 defense and an average offense will get us to the playoffs this year. That's personally what I believe. Ranking 31st in the league in points allowed is unacceptable. And that's why we didn't make the playoffs last year. We were 1 game away, and we lost by single-digit points on like 4 or 5 games, maybe more, Anthony. So based on all the stuff you heard today, I mean, I don't know if you have any thoughts on Kadarius Toney's comments or Darnay Holmes' comments, but we'll wrap up here because I think we've kind of covered everything in terms of the quotes and some of the schematics that we think will be present this upcoming season. But I'll tell you what, I am so excited. We have a preseason game tonight, which I'll be watching. Hopefully the Cowboys get toasted in the Hall of Fame game. And then I think it's Cowboys-Steelers. And then we have the Giants on August 14th in 9 days, my friends. 9 days! I'm so hyped. It's been so long. I feel like, it's been too long.
I'm sure everyone viewing this and listening to this can feel our excitement. I mean, we're just going off being total football guys, right? Just sitting here getting into football schematics for 10 minutes. We're just like, you know what? I like the 11 personnel. I mean, we're just excited for football to be back. I can't wait. Of course, I'm watching the Cowboys get their ass kicked in a preseason game. Who wouldn't love to see that, right? I'm just ready. Football, it's back, bro. I'm so excited, man. And of course, wrapping up everything that we talked about. We talked about schematics. We talked about all these quotes. I mean, the one thing I got to say, though, is just realize how many times Sterling Shepard's name just keeps popping up throughout this offseason.
With every unit.
Dude, it's everywhere. He's everywhere. Like, no one can stop talking about Sterling Shepard. I'm telling you, man, big year in store for him. And you asked me how I feel about Kadarius Toney. I'm excited to see that he's finally practicing. I hope he ramps up. I hope we do see him play some in the preseason. I think that we will. And I think it's going to be really important for him to get out there in the preseason and really kind of prove that he's ready to play. And I'm pretty encouraged by everything we've heard from him so far. It sounds like he's been a really good hard worker, and he's been very good in practice and good teammate as well. So that's exciting. First round pick. You want to make sure that they pass all the character checks, and seems like he has so far. And Darnay Holmes, of course, I love how he's just trying to absorb as much information as possible, become a better player, learn student of the game kind of mentality. And yeah, that's kind of how the whole team needs to be, because it's a young team, and I think that's kind of how the whole team is. They're all just trying to learn from anybody who's older on the team. Shepard not being an old guy, but being being a veteran guy, helping teach the guys. And, I just see a lot of synergy, a lot of chemistry, a lot of camaraderie with this familial feeling in this team. And that's what I love. That's where I see a clear difference in the Joe Judge era versus the Shermer era or the Ben McAdoo era. I see a clear-cut difference in terms of the culture. That's what gets me so excited for the future and the direction of this Giants team. And like I said, man, 9 days till the first preseason game. Are you freaking kidding me? Get hyped, Giants fans. I'm ready.
I'm so hyped. And I'll leave you with this quote from Patrick Graham. Okay, Patrick Graham quote, good way to end this episode. He says, we really want it to be reflective. He's talking about the defense here. We really want it to be reflective of the communities, the tri-state, New York, however you want to look at it. But like the people here, they're tough. They work hard. I mean, come on, man. That right in line with what Joe Judge says all the time. He wants to represent the New York area, and I think they want to create a good team for us, man. It feels like they're including us for once. I feel like Pat Shermer and Ben McAdoo, they kind of like kept the fans out. They didn't want it to be like a friendly, it's football, man. It doesn't exist without us. And Joe Judge understands that. He wants the community involved. He wants old players to come back and be involved. This is the future. This is not the same Giants team it was 2 years ago. Not even close. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, my friends. Make sure to subscribe below on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Notifications on, as always. We've got so much good stuff coming up in the coming days. And with preseason on the way, we got you with so much awesome film work and content, everything in between. And before you know it, it'll be week 1 against Denver. And hopefully Daniel Jones will be throwing 5 touchdown passes. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow.